challenging lines set the tone of today's gospel regarding our priorities. The first is, for where your treasure is, there also your heart will be. And the last line of our gospel, much will be required of the person entrusted with much, and still more will be demanded of the person entrusted with more. I don't really like those two lines. They challenge me too much to evaluate my own priorities and my own regarding my own priorities regarding my own material goods. In this gospel, Jesus is wearing a different hat than what we normally see him wear. The hat he normally wears, he goes by a variety of titles: the great healer, the great rabbi, the great physician, many other titles. But in today's gospel, presents Jesus in another role and wearing a different hat that is much less familiar. Today, Jesus is giving us advice as a financial advisor, how to handle our own financial affairs and our treasure. Jesus certainly doesn't have the credentials to be a financial advisor. He was a poor man, worked as a carpenter until he was 30. How could Jesus possibly know about financial matters? I would much rather prefer the advice of a good stockbroker or a certified financial planner. At least let's hear what Jesus has to say. When we think of investments, we think of our own investments, of course, stocks, bonds, CDs, and obviously our homes. But let's expand our concept of the word investment. Let's think of our life as we live it as a continuous process of investing. Investing not only in material goods, but also investing in spiritual and moral values that help our families and nourish our faith. Jesus said to his disciples in today's gospel, provide money bags for yourselves that do not wear out, an inexhaustible treasure in heaven that no thief can reach nor moth destroy. For where your treasure is, there also your heart will be. I didn't realize it when I wrote this homily. That's the full theme of today's picture on the front of our bulletin. For where your treasure is, there also your heart will be. As an investment counselor and financial advisor, Jesus really has a strange solution for financial security. Sell your belongings and give alms. Wait a minute, that's a solution? Sell all my belongings? Jesus, you're crazy. I don't understand that. That's too radical an idea. But if I could, I'd ask Jesus, do your ideas work? Do they provide security? Some years ago, I read an article about a very wealthy man in a small town in Alabama. He was very rich, and he decided to give away a lot of his money, and he made a large donation to his church. He also gave the land and money to build a children's playground. He then gave several $1 million to modernize the local hospital. Shortly after that, the real estate boom or crash of the late 80s occurred, and he was forced into bankruptcy. He was broke, dead broke. And his wife asked him if he was sorry that he had given all his money away. Does he wish he could have any of it back? And he said, no way. The investment that I gave away is my treasure in heaven. I can never lose. In essence, Jesus, as our financial advisor, is telling us that the most special investment that you and I can ever make is the time and the talent and the treasure that we give away. It's a treasure no thief can reach nor moth destroy. Where does our treasure lie? What are some of our investments? Is it our home or our new car? A stock portfolio? Does the performance of the Dow Jones every day drive us crazy? Is getting ahead at all costs one of our primary goals? However, I'd like to make a very important point here. There is nothing wrong or immoral with wealth or having money or a nice home or a stock portfolio or working hard to support your family. There is nothing wrong with that. We all have to live and eat. We all have to support our families. It's the priority. It's the priority that the material goods play in our lives. Do the material goods control us, or do we control the material goods? That's the key question of this whole theme of this homily. Do the material goods control us, or do we control the material goods? In today's gospel, and last Sunday's gospel also, there's a common theme. Jesus warns us about the accumulation of wealth. The accumulation of wealth. Last Sunday's parable was interesting. It revolved around a very rich man who had a huge harvest. He had so much grain to store, he didn't know where to put it. So he tore down his old barn and he built 2 new barns, huge, that could store all his grain. Then he said, I'm really set for life. I have enough to live on. I can eat, drink, and be merry. And God said to him, you fool, tonight your very life will be demanded of you. And the things you prepared, to whom will they go? Thus it will be for those who store up treasures for themselves and who are not rich in what matters to God. If Jesus were asking us about our investments, he might ask us, are we investing in a good and loving marriage? Are we investing in a good and loving relationship with our children? As part of our investment portfolio in God, the daily practice of our faith, is that an important part of our life? Is daily prayer a part of our investment portfolio? Do we invest in helping others who need our help, who need charity, who are disenfranchised and less really poorer than we are? Jesus, as our financial advisor, is telling us that our best investment is giving away of our time, our talent, and our treasure. Do we want to be remembered as one who had a lot or as one who gave a lot? No one has ever said on their deathbed, gee, I wished I'd spent more time at the office or in front of my computer. Ultimately, on the day we die, the total value of all our investments, all of our stocks, everything we have in our life, the total value to us on the day we die will be worthless, zero, zip. I've said this before, but I've never seen a funeral procession with a U-Haul behind the hearse loaded with all the material goods that the deceased wanted to take to the next life. Remember, we make a living with what we get, but we make a life by what we give. A deacon friend of mine who died recently had a holy card, which I carry in my wallet, and this is what it says. I think it's from St. Francis of Assisi. Remember that when you leave this earth, you can take nothing that you have received, but only what you have given. A full heart enriched by honest service, love, and sacrifice to others. So in closing, repeating those 2 powerful lines in our gospel message today. For where your treasure is, there also your heart will be, and much will be required of the person entrusted with much, and more will be demanded of the person entrusted with more. So those 2 lines are the priorities that Jesus asks us to do. And the challenge to us is, what are our priorities? What are our priorities?
Thank you for joining us for this celebration of the Mass. This virtual Mass is broadcast to hundreds of people every day of the week. You know, over 100 years ago, the very first celebrations of the Mass took place on the 2nd floor of the Glenview Public House. It's been inconceivable that 100 years later, we would be reaching so many people all over the world through this technology. If you'd like to support the ongoing broadcasts of OLPH's Masses, please go to our website, go to Give Central, and you'll be able to support the ongoing outreach of this virtual ministry. Thank you for your support. Most of all, thank you for joining us in prayer. God bless you.